Well, it's finally here. Our new horror show on the Dynamo Podcast Network is On the Slab. And we are here tonight to talk about one of our favourite movies of all time. But of course, I could do this solo, but I don't want to do it solo. I've got my right-hand man with me, and he is the podfather of the DPN, and that's Ian the Dynamo Kelly. How's it going, brother?
Yes, sir. Delighted to be here. We're finally here, which I'm super excited about. We've probably had this in the works for the best part of a year, I would say.
Yeah.
Started with just an idea, a slab of an idea, one might say. And here we are. And we're not going to be like other podcasts or anything like this. This is more of a show because there's many great podcasts out there. But for me, I don't really like my horror podcasts when I'm just hearing the audio and just hearing lads making jokes and stuff. And there is some great ones out there, you know, without mentioning names. But we can probably guess of the biggest ones. They don't really do anything for me because if I'm listening to something, I like to visualize what I'm seeing. Yeah. So I prefer more suspense and horror stories rather than. Yeah. So I think this is a show, visual show. As you see, you've got your nice little collection in front of you there.
Absolutely.
Horror memorabilia.
You got to represent. That's only a percentage of it, of course.
Exactly. But it's one of our favorite subjects. So I don't think there's two better people to get this boy rolling, to be honest.
Absolutely. So just to tell people a little bit about what we're going to be doing over the next while, we're going to be not necessarily reviewing films, we're talking about what we think of them. Mm-hmm. And we'll give them a little review at the end, but it's not that's not strictly a review per se. And they're going to be films that both of us are into, and I mean, it's just gonna be nice to revisit these films again. I mean, I watched this film about 3 times this week. Yeah, and it never gets old. So
me too. I sent you obviously a screenshot the other day of the intro. Blue Moon, what a tune as well. Yeah. And I think the only review we'll be doing is our slabometer, we'll call it, our slabometer, where we pick. We have 5 slabs of meat to throw down out of 5, and we'll be giving it at the end. We'll be picking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slabs. So this is exciting.
Yes. So in addition to kind of film discussions, film discussions, we're going to try and work some other bits and pieces in, but we won't reveal it just yet. But there's going to be a bit of variety in relation to horror, and you know, we're going to try and incorporate as much Irish horror as we can without being too kind of cheesy, you know? Yeah. And I'd also like to say, and I think you'd agree on this, Ian, that if anyone wants us to talk about anything in particular, get in touch.
Hell yeah.
You know? And if anyone even wants to come on and has even a scary story to tell, an experience, we will have to happily have them on. You know?
Yeah, look, I'm sure we don't obviously have any kind of social medias for On the Slab right now. I'm sure that's something we can probably do. I don't know whether we need it, but the Dynamo Podcast Network, everything will be, there's a Facebook page there. Yeah. There's a YouTube comment section. It'll have its own playlist. So if you need to reach out to us on the Dynamo Podcast Network. You can reach out to me at Ian Kelly 800 on Twitter. You can reach out to Carl as well.
Okay.
On Facebook, yeah. So and obviously KingWoe King is on Twitter too. So yeah, any suggestions? If you guys, you know, don't give us stupid suggestions, you know, because we're not gonna bother with it. You know what I mean? But I will say, I am a huge advocate for B movies. Do you know what I mean? Especially 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s B movies. Yeah. You know, you want to come at me with Maniac Cop 3 or something like that. I'll make a proposition to Carl here, no problem. If you want to, you know, sorority slashers and stuff like that, you know, we're all about that. So, you know, we're not necessarily going to be a mainstream horror show. I mean, we will probably hit some of the big movies. I'm sure we're going to do an episode on Scream and all at some point, and movies like that. But for us, we're going to be giving you some really good. I'm sure down the line we're going to do a show, our favorite or maybe a recommendation show. Actually.
Yeah.
That's what.
Oh, we could do a countdown even. There's loads. The great thing about horror is there's so much that you can look at.
So much, man, and like we're two guys that definitely know our horror, and if you want recommendations and stuff like that, I'm sure we'll get a show in that vein. But Carl, you were taking the lead on this mother flubber today because we're gonna keep it PG for the minute, just so
for the minute.
For the minute, that will change.
I've been watching horror since I must have been about 11, which is a long time. Oh, yeah. And this film was actually the first horror film I saw.
Oh.
And that's how long how much this film means to me. In case you haven't caught it yet, or we didn't say it yet, we're going to be talking about an American Werewolf in London. So it's actually the 40th anniversary of the film this year. So,
yes, it is.
What better film to start off our on the SLAB horror show than an American Werewolf in London? And I just can't wait to talk about it because I could talk about this film all day, and Ian's heard me talking about it too many times over the years. So,
yes, sir.
So the first time I actually believe I was just telling you off air. The first time I heard about this film, I must have been about 10 or 7. Yeah. I was about 7, and there was a shop on Cable Street, I think it was, called RTV, which was a rental shop, and they had a poster of American Werewolf in London in there, and like I could win with my mum or whatever. But one time I went in and they had the second film on like 4 or 5 different tellies.
Those old school, man. I love those shops. Good Lord.
Yeah. It was so cool. And it was, you know what scene it was? Can you guess? No, it was the Piccadilly Circus.
Oh.
And so this, like, you wouldn't see that nowadays in anywhere on a TV in a shop or something. It'd be too mad to be showing stuff like that now on a TV in a shop. But those were the days, and that's where I saw the thing first. And I was fascinated by, not by the carnage, but by the look and the feel of it. And then I don't know how, but I think a friend of mine had it, and we watched it, and I was just sold then. When do you remember seeing it the first time?
By accident, I saw, believe it or not, the first scene I ever saw from that movie, I must have been maybe 6 or 7 as well, around that period. And as you recall, for all you kids out there, I don't believe it was RTE, because it was too, because there was Catholics wouldn't have any of that, But I believe it might have been BBC used to have a horror night anyway. As you remember, there was the Hammer House of Horror and the Hammer Hour and all that, so they used to have that. But they would have at Halloween. BBC was the best for Halloween when you were growing up, because they would have a whole horror weekend, you know what I mean? So from Watershed, which Watershed, for all you kids out there, if they don't use that anymore, 9 p.m. Once it hit 9 p.m, boom, kids go to bed, and you're not meant to.
Anything goes.
Exactly, anything goes. And they used to just play non-stop horror, like, and they'd probably have maybe a horror on from 9 or 10 every other weekend anyway. But then, like, say 11, 12 o'clock, the midnight hour into the witching hour, they would have horror movies on. And I remember it was one Halloween. I think the adults had turned their back for maybe 10 minutes, and I flicked the channel. And I flicked the channel onto the first change, which we're going to get into later. And I'm sitting there going,
what blow your mind.
The fuck am I looking at here? Like, I'm terrified, you know what I mean? So I was probably about 7 or 8. So that was the first time, like, that was the first scene I'd seen. In terms of seeing the movie in full for the first time, it was one of those same deals. I was probably a little bit older though, maybe 13, 14. And I was at the age where I was old enough to have my own little tiny TV. I think my own laptop is actually bigger than the TV screen I had in my bedroom. And you'd play your PlayStation or whatever, and then when you were getting into bed, my favorite thing in the world was sitting, like, looking at the looking at the newspaper to see what was on the telly and just looking for anything horror, you know what I mean? Because you remember, like, the description would always tell you exactly.
That's right, yeah.
Thriller, action, romance, horror.
Yeah.
And I think it was on a late show and on, again, BBC or UTV, one of it, maybe Channel 4.
Channel 4, I always got to watch it.
Yeah, Channel 4 was pretty good. And I remember it was on at like midnight. And I was like, right, I remember that scene from when I was, you know, the things you're not allowed to watch as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, so I remember I sat and watched it, fucking terrified. Yeah.
And you would be.
That was brought out 3 years before my time. I was born in '84, so that was born 81.
Absolutely.
August '81. So, that was my first introduction to what is now, you know, one of the most beautiful and, in my opinion, and yours, the best werewolf movie. I'm a big advocate for the original Wolfman, though. I do love it, you know what I mean? But I think this one, though, it's a different league, you know?
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a couple of good werewolf movies, but for me, and as you said for you, this just ticks all the boxes for me, you know?
Yeah.
I have views, you know me, I have views on how a werewolf should be and look. I have views on how a vampire should be and look. And and again, down the line we get into some of those type of films as well that I like that are vampires. And
that, you know? Like the Wolfman will definitely be reviewed, but one of the things that really stands out in this movie for me is the fact that it gets a mention, and Bela Lugosi gets a mention in the movie.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. And then the Oliver Reed one gets a mention.
That's a great film as well.
Oh, Oliver Reed was fucking awesome in that,
yeah.
But the Hammer movie, and it's great that they pay homage to what came before them in this movie, so that makes it even more perfect.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, John Landis is he loves his history. He did love his history, should I say?
You got to give a shout out to John Landis. Yeah, I mean, like, for anyone that doesn't know John Landis, like, just think Thriller. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The guy was an absolute genius.
And well, don't forget, he did Blues Brothers as well.
He did.
Yeah. But what I love about this film is he had the script in his mind from about 1969, and he was working on the set of Kelly's Heroes, and him and one of the fellas who was working on the film were I can't remember where it was, in some European country anyway, and they were driving down this road and they saw this funeral happening, and they were burying this chap feet first, wrapped in garlic. And a man who he was with thought this was hilarious. And John was like, what's going on here? And he said, they bury him like that so he doesn't rise from the grave or something. And to deal with that, it all kind of stemmed from there. He's like, what would happen if somebody did rise from the grave? How would they deal with it? Rise from the dead? How would they deal with it, you know? So that's how he kind of formulated the werewolf movie from that. But, you know, it's such an iconic film.
Yeah.
You know, let's briefly talk about it. I mean, it's about two lads from America who are on holidays in England, and
Yorkshire.
Yeah. And they're trying to. I think they're doing a bit of hitchhiking and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, they find their way into a pub that is a little bit iffy now, in fairness to them, and they see a pentagram on the wall.
What's the name of the pub?
The Slaughtered Lamb.
It's this stood out for me, like, because when you look at the actual, it's a dead giveaway, because you see the actual, you know, the pub sign, those old school little pub signs. I think we'd be remiss to say that, because they're on the moors, like, and they just find this little bumfuck town, like, in the middle of Yorkshire, as you say, and the rest is. Go ahead. I just wanted to mention that because that stood out for me.
Well, I think it was gas. The location, they filmed the kind of those scenes in Wales, believe it or not. And then
I do believe it.
Yeah. And then the actual scene in the Slaughtered Lamb was in a pub called the Black Swan in Surrey. So they had two different locations for each thing, you know. Yeah,
the little town obviously was Wales. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the interior of the pub was Black Swan. But anyway, they go in and they're looking for something to eat, and they won't give them that and they eat. And I'm skimming over because there's been loads of videos done about this before. They want some food, they won't give them food. They're like, no, go, Because
They want a soda. No, we have beer, and that's
yeah. They ask what the pentagram on the wall is for, and that pisses off everyone. And they basically go. They're told to beware the moon and stay on the road, keep off the moors. So off they go, and it starts pissing rain, and they don't. And it's so stupid. They just walk off onto the moor, and you're like, no, stop! You just know something bad's going to fucking happen, like.
It's funny as well because like the acting was so dated as well. No offense to the guys, obviously, but the acting was so dated because you're like these two idiot Americans, you know what I mean? Or you know, it was very typecast, wasn't it? Like they're and I mean John Landis is American, so I mean he wrote it, so it wasn't. I don't mean that as an offense, but it was the typecast of just two young punk students over in England taking the piss out of everything, and they were, and that's the whole premise.
Pretty much, yeah.
Two of them are taking the piss out of. I mean, they dare ask a question like, "What's the pentagram mean?" when you're already in a weird environment, and you know people.
And they're two kind of wise asses as well. Even when they're going along, looking, going on down the moor, and they're all, all the wires cracking and all this kind of crack, and then all of a sudden they shoot back to the pub, and they hear the very, very scary hell. They're like, no, we must go to them. We must get them. And of course, the lads are just like, no, I'm not going. We're not going. So the poor boys are left to their own devices.
And one thing I wanted to point out, we talked off air about this. This is obviously such a big part of our love for horror. Is suspense and atmosphere. Yeah. It's the not knowing and not seeing. And I think the moors is so great because it's nighttime. You can see the mist, the fog, if you will. And the suspense created by that, when it was done right in the old days, again, it's a throwback to that old historical black and white stuff where you could have a set, like, and you could see a cemetery or just a field, but you could get so much from one field. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's because what you can't see. It's just the atmosphere and the suspense is amazing, and then obviously they're hearing the growls and the shit. And you're not seeing it. It's very Army of Darkness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the way that was done was brilliant.
Perfect.
You can hear this big. It's a big beast.
Oh yeah,
but you can't see it. And then in later versions of when they re-release or whatever. They did up the sound, and so as the thing is circling them, if you have surround sound, you'll hear the thing circling. So that just even adds to it,
Yeah. It's awesome. Like, and obviously, as you said, we're not going to do a step by step on it, but that's the first time shit's going down.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, it's like, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about the thing because I want to actually talk about these particular scenes later on.
Yes.
The lads get attacked by the werewolf. One dies, one is going to become a werewolf, and his friend who is dead comes back as undead, and he's trying to get him to kill himself, basically.
Yeah, it's a good friend.
Yeah. Hey, well, we all have a friend like that,
You should kill yourself.
Imagine, go kill yourself, Ian, will you? Sorry.
It's best for business.
Yeah. Go drown or something, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, so again, if you don't know about the film, which I'm assuming everyone does because you're here and you know what we're talking about.
Yes.
But this is basically showing our love for this film. So, there's some amazing looking scenes in this film. And as you so rightly said, the atmosphere and the tension in certain scenes is just unreal. But also the gas thing about this film is some people consider it a horror. Or sorry, not a horror. It is a horror. Look, some people consider it a comedy.
Yeah, you can see that. You can see where they'd get that from. There's comedic elements because the two main characters are doofuses,
Yeah.
Like they're goons, and like even when he wakes up in the hospital, like he's just a wise ass, as you said.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's got the hots for the nurse and all, and he's just like,
who doesn't?
You know what I mean? It's, so,
but as well as that, though, there's a lot of what do you call it? The part where he has the red coat on him, and he's after the forced transformation, stuff like that. The kids in the hospital that are just little messes, just
Yeah.
little funny bits of that. But what
No.
yeah. And then when your woman says, "How would you like to be beaten about the face and legs?" and he's like, "No." I love shit like that.
Yeah.
But John Landis made a very good comment one time. He said that the film was classed as too scary to be a comedy and too funny to be a horror, which I think is
in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I see something more like Shaun of the Dead as a horror comedy. I love that film.
Me too.
Well, I think the amount of gore in this film, there's just the perfect amount to make it a horror film.
Oh no, it's definitely a horror. Like, I mean, there's no doubt it's a horror. It's perfect 80s horror, and especially this is in a year like this is 1981. So I mean, when they're filming this, it's probably the 80s. You know what I mean? Or 1980, should I say? I know it's 80s, obviously.
Yeah.
But this is the transition into 80s horror. Do you know what I mean? This is and what they did perfectly, as you said, was they balanced. I mean, actors in 80s horror, like, they were never always the best actors. You know what I mean?
No.
It wasn't about getting an award or anything like that, or it was more about the narrative. And I think the narrative in this is perfect because, like you said, and it's a really good point you touched on, there's not too much gore. It's perfectly placed. The gore in this movie is perfectly placed, and it's also spaced out.
Yeah.
It's like, what is happening to this guy? Is he actually turning into a lunatic? He's seen his friend who looks like he's just been dragged out of the New Orleans swamp.
Yeah.
You know, what is going on here? And I think it's the perfect balance of comedic elements in it. The perfect balance of good slow burn storytelling, even though it's all squashed into quite a short movie.
It's a short film, yeah.
It's only about an hour and 20 or something like that. So yeah, no, I think it's it's perfect, and like I say, it's very transitional as a movie for what was to come later in the 80s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One of the very early movies that had a lot of prosthetics and stuff like that, and really creative, you know, studio costume. You know, obviously the prosthetics is what I'm trying to get at. Is one of the very early works where you're seeing everything. You know what I mean? You're seeing fucking a lad's back bubbling up and shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're not just camera turns away and all of a sudden he's a lad with a fucking big beard. Like,
well, and what I love about it is, Landis wanted it to seem like the transformation to seem real as you could get. And I mean, of course, he got the legendary makeup designer and artist Rick Baker in, who is the best. You know, I mean, for God's sakes, they actually made an official Academy Awards slot for this film with best makeup, because best makeup, would you believe, or best makeup, best effects was only like a throwaway category before this. Yeah. And so they made it specifically for this film because it was such a good revolutionary film at the time.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and then as well as that, there was 2 other werewolf movies came out in the same year, and that was The Howling and Wolfen. Did you ever see those?
Yeah, of course, and 2 good movies in their own right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The Howling is an absolute classic. I'm sure we'll do that.
We will.
Wolfen is kind of like a little. That's like a little personal favourite of mine as well.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
It is, but I mean, this was the best of the 3. Though.
Oh yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So there's 3, as I say, like there's 3 components of the film that I think are really stand out for me anyway, and you can probably agree with me or not, I don't know. The first attack on the moors when Jack gets absolutely fucking mangled.
Yeah.
That is just, like, for me, that's horror movie. That's a good horror.
Violent. It's violent.
And you're not even that long into the film. It's great, like, you know. But I mean, it's a real. It does it, and that's it. Like, it's a real short, sharp shock.
I'd agree with that. Again, perfect timing.
Yeah.
Why space it out much longer? Perfect timing, you know.
And the fact that Griffin Dunne who played Jack, he was given his socks when he was getting mauled and, you know, destroyed by this big beast. Yeah, again, just adds to the authenticity of it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
100%.
absolutely, for me, you see that straight away and you're like, yes, this is a proper horror film, you know?
Yeah.
And, I mean, again, as you were saying, the whole atmosphere of the moors, it's creepy, isn't it? It's very creepy.
It's to me, the way I can liken it to is it's a throwback to old kind of you know, black and white zombie movies, even Dracula movies, you know, like the crypt always had that smoke coming out of it, and I always loved that, to be honest with you, because it always scared the fucking shit out of me. That's why. And I can reminisce on it, and I'm not so scared anymore. But it brings you back to a time when you were, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And, you know, anyone that knows me and Carl, we are both very, very much so creatures of nostalgia. And you'll never take that kid out of us. And I think that's, for a lot of people that like horror and love old vintage movies, that's exactly where that comes from, you know what I mean? It brings that little element of your childhood into you. And I think the more scene that you're talking about, the segue was worth it, because this is where I'm getting. It does remind you of like Horror Hotel or something, you know what I mean? That kind of fucking, you know, small town, you know, what's in the distance, nobody knows. The locals are all a bit weird, and I think that's the base, that's the foundation for the scene to work.
Yeah.
You know, people always think of the scene or the kill or whatever it is in horror, but it's not really, for me anyway.
No.
It's the foundation is the atmosphere, the scenes, you know, the set, the lighting, the music, you know, it's all components that can make it work. Because I mean, me and you could just do a kill scene here and now, and people would be like, "That's shit."
Exactly.
And it could be, you know, it could sound as violent, and we could put as much music on it as we want, but it's the background. It's what you don't see in the background and what you're not concentrating on. Subconscious.
In terms of horror for me now, I like that. I like that kind of gore. I was more into, again, what you can't see, what they don't show you.
Me too.
Know? So up until that point, you're just hearing this growl, and you're like, "What the fuck is that? What's it gonna look like?" You know.
You know, it's a beast. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I love about this, most werewolf films, as you know, they're standing on 2 feet, like this chap here.
Yeah.
You know, I love the fact that this one is on all fours.
It's just a enormous fucking wolf.
Yeah.
As it should be.
So that scene for me, you know, it's got my attention already. Then, of course, and it's one of the most iconic scenes in film history, in horror film history, is when he changes for the first time into the werewolf in the apartment.
Yeah.
This is a thing of beauty. But it also has one thing it annoys me every time I see it. But I'll get to that in a minute. Everything is practical effects in this.
Yeah.
There's no CG. They made the props for the hand extending up and the legs. For that film, which is
big fan.
Oh.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite thing. Like, as you know, John Carpenter's probably my favorite director of all time, and that's his game. You know what I mean? It's I'm just not a proponent of CGI. Nah, it's not for me.
I think if you were able to get a good balance between practical and CGI,
it works in certain elements. You know what I mean? You couldn't have Marvel movies with just prosthetics. You know what I mean? I understand. But, I understand. We're kind of like, it's going to sound like we're contradicting ourselves here, but I think especially for horror movies, I think the prosthetics, and especially with what they were able to do back then, they can still do it now. There's certain movies that come out now that do have it.
That's right.
And it's and there is some that come to mind. They just that should come to mind, but I can't think of them right now.
But the thing about it is,
that balance. Yeah.
I mean, they can, with the materials that are available now for practical effects, it can be done, you know.
Of course.
And maybe we're a dying breed of old school horror fan. I don't know.
I think we are.
you know, because even horror, you could probably count the amount of modern horror films I like on one hand, and for that reason, down the line we will delve into those.
Yeah.
But like no one compares to older stuff. It really
No.
doesn't. And you know, I think that we're like that with music as well. A lot of old music, you know.
Very much so. Very much so, man. Very much so. I mean, I'm a Hitchcock guy. You know what I mean? I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time, as we know, is The Spiral Staircase. And I'm not to get off topic, but again, it's what you don't see. It's the suspense. It's the atmosphere, and I think that's the premise of this film. Fundamentally, what keeps your interest at the start of this movie is that it's what you can't see, and then you're thinking, right, did he just get attacked by a big fucking wolf? I mean, we know it's called an American Werewolf in London, but like to the smart fan, they're probably thinking, is this just all in his mind? Because they hint at that they'll go a lunatic.
Yeah.
You know? And obviously the doctor thinks he might be a lunatic, but then the doctor starts thinking, okay, there might be something to this, and obviously the doctor goes to the pub himself, and like again, same deal, no fucking drink, order alcohol or else get out, and gets himself. I love the fact that he gets a half pint of Guinness. I thought it was great for the Irish ones, and you know, he's playing your man at chess and all that. And not to give a breakdown of the movie, but you can see that the doctor's kind of going, there's something fishy going on here, you know. And even when they're standing outside that scene, I love that scene. Just something that comes to mind is when your man kind of says to him, basically confirms, yes, there is a wolf, you know. You know, there is something dodgy going on, and your man's like, that's enough.
Well, Brian Glover, what a I love him in this film.
I think essentially what they're trying to say here is that the locals aren't actually just weird inbred locals that don't want anyone in their town. This is a local legend, but a real legend, and they're meant to keep their mouth shut. They're trying to
keep it within themselves.
Yeah, and they're trying to protect them, because you see that they're actually like, stay off the moors. They're actually trying to help the boys. They're like, get out, but just fucking be safe. You know what I mean? And of course, two wise asses can't do that, because, as you said, they don't even stick to a road. They walk in the grass. They're like, what are you doing? You lunatics. So,
you know what? Another thing I thought was mad about this film. I mean, obviously, Jenny Octor, who plays Nurse Price. I was fascinated with her for years.
Were you trying to get during the old love-making scenes? Were you trying to catch a glimpse? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
I'm only human, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well.
But the fact that she brought him home, like, she only met him.
Listen,
she brings him home and then they fall in love.
Well, look, she might have taken a sneak peek under the cover while he was sleeping. You know.
Well, I know her mate did.
Yeah, they were in a coma, so like she probably thought, right, this guy's got something here. This American guy's got some junk going on, so why not try it?
Dirty.
I didn't do it.
I just thought it was mad that like he takes him home and there you go, like there you're somewhere to kind of stay now, you know.
I guess the premise is that, like, you know, you're only seeing like sections of it. Like, he's obviously been there for such a long time in the hospital, nearly 6 weeks or something.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they'd obviously built a rapport, and you know, that's kind of, you know. So I think that's the whole idea behind that. But and then of course, you know, this wasn't one of my scenes, but this part where. You know, when he has the nightmare within the nightmare, with the kind of Nazi soldier fellas. Oh yeah,
it was mental,
mad.
Mental. And then, like, do you know what really got me at that? Now, that was the first time I was afraid of that film. Believe it or not, when I saw that, and I heard, you know, when one of them was going around, you go, that noise that he's making.
Yeah, that makes sense though. Yeah. That would scare you, like, as a kid. You know what I mean? If you were 7 watching that, fucking
freaked me out no end. You know.
Yeah.
But it was brilliant the way it was done. It really was brilliant the way it was done. And then of course she opens up the blinds, and then if she gets stabbed, brilliant. You know.
Yeah.
And then like that, even the way those guys were made up looked fantastic, I have to say.
Oh, everything was just perfect, like, you know. And again, it's it's shown you into the mindset of this guy's psyche that he's losing the plot. You know what I mean? Because obviously he doesn't realize it. He's still a wise ass, but internally he's changing. You know what I mean? So he's getting these dark visions, and you know, obviously the werewolf kind of blood is starting to
take over.
Yeah.
And then like the final part that I think is iconic is the Piccadilly Circus rampage. Well, he's just after being in the porno theater, and he sees all the people that he killed who are undead, and his friend Jack is trying to make him decide to kill himself. And sorry, we need to step back there a little bit. Jack is actually brilliant.
The change,
And every time you see him, he's getting more decayed, or he's getting, you know, and I mean,
he's great banter in that. He's actually
brilliant. But the way you see him at kind of the last piece, when it's just literally a puppet. The way they did that puppet was fantastic. Absolutely,
it was amazing. It was amazing.
I don't know if you remember one part as well when he visited David first, and you can see the little bit of skin, dangling.
Yeah,
that was an accident, and they just kept it in.
That was actually really good, man. That was one of the first things I noticed. Funny enough, actually.
Brilliant.
Unreal, man. Unreal.
So the Piccadilly Circus rampage, it's just like 2 minutes of pure carnage. All the cars just getting, you know, mangling up everybody.
What about like when he gets that little tosser in the underground?
Oh yeah,
and that was a really fucking unique scene, because that's the first time you see the wolf in full, when he's kind of going up the escalator.
But and it's funny, you just see it kind of coming into shot, and you're like, yeah, that's deadly.
It's unbelievable, like I thought, because you can tell that the guy has seen it, but you haven't seen it yet. You're just seeing the pause or whatever, you know what I mean? And then when you do get the full view, you're like, holy shit, this thing is huge. This is what got them in the moors, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that when he's running away, and you see, it looks like the thing is running after him. You're looking at it from the wolf view.
Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. I can't believe I forgot that scene.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a brilliant scene. Like, there's so many good parts of this film, you know, and like the whole, as I was saying to you at the end, with the where he's going through Piccadilly Circus. Again, another thing that freaked me out was just seeing the wolf go around snapping at people, snapping at the bus, and the bus turns over. Like,
he's just going for everything and anything. You know what I mean? It's like the just the lunatic in the pub that wants to fight everyone. He's fighting at everyone. So, come on, you want some? You know what I mean? It's just like, whoa, this thing is on a rampage here. Like, and I mean, it's kind of a sad story as well within the story. You know,
it is.
Because obviously your one is fucking. You know, she loves him, like, and you know he's told her he loves her. She hasn't quite said it back, and you know, obviously she does at one point. But it's quite a sad story within the story too, because even though they're a couple of schmucks, like, no, they don't deserve that. Like, you know what I mean?
No, it's quite horrific. In fact, these two poor American youngsters, and on their first day on their trip. And they get fucking hockeyed over.
Just don't go to England. And I love the fact that it was set in London, actually, or in England, should I say?
Yeah.
Because you know, in so many of the old movies, it's kind of like it's always these locations that look very, you know, nefarious or whatever, and they're kind of, you know, this is just literally a small little town. You know, you would expect that. You know, you would expect that in the likes of Swamp Thing or something, you know, the swamps of Louisiana, or, you know, the castle of Dracula in Transylvania. Like, this is just jolly old England, you know.
It makes for a really, really great atmosphere.
Very unique.
You're going to hear that word atmosphere a lot in our show.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Because that's what we look for in
atmosphere,
in our horror movies, for sure.
The fact that, well, I loved the complete difference between the Americans and the English in the pub. That was it's two totally different worlds.
Cultures,
Yeah.
Two guys that are used to fucking big city flashing lights and, credit cards and all that kind of thing, and it's just like, here you are in just this little local fucking pub with a bleeding pentagram.
I know, yeah.
Wall.
Brilliant.
Unbelievable.
So, of course, and then what really did surprise me was how short the film was, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
Quite a short film because...
Very short, yeah.
Getting near the end of it, he ends up down that big lane and they kill him. She says she loved him and then he looked at, you see his eyes changing a bit and then he goes for it and then he's dead.
Silver bullet.
Pretty much, well, probably 20 bullets in that one.
Silver. It's all silver.
Have to be.
Yeah.
But again, as we said, it's not a review per se, it's just us chatting about the film. And I never get bored watching that film. I don't know, but do you know something? It didn't get overly amazing reviews back in the day. I think it got 7 out of 10 or something like that. But it wasn't.
Which isn't bad.
It's not bad, but yeah, I can understand. There is parts where it's a little bit. You're like, what the hell,
How is it aged? How is it aged with people? As have people? I'd love to know that actually. I'd love to ask that question. Anyone listening to this show, I'd love you all to, if you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it and can't quite remember it, go back and watch it. And I'd love you to give us your feedback on what you think of it now and how it's aged, and whether you do think it has its rightful place as a classic, or you think it's a steaming piece of shit. It's your opinion.
I think I think it divides people. I really do. People either love it or they hate it. I think. I don't know. Yeah. I just love it, so I don't know.
Me too. Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites. There's a great documentary done in 2008 as well about it.
Beware the Moon.
Yeah.
Beware the Moon, isn't it?
Beware the Moon. Yeah.
It's a very good one. But
good, yeah.
there's so many good variables in this film to make it a good film. Let's quickly give the cast an nod. You had David Naughton, who played David Kessler, and he was the Dr. Pepper man, our young boy before. He was. And then when he did this film, they fired him from that because of his naked scenes in this. So.
Fuck those guys.
Yeah, fuck Dr. Pepper, we better not say that. Because we may get sponsored by Dr. Pepper. No, we won't.
It's a wholesome, refreshing drink.
We love Dr. Pepper here on the slab.
Absolutely. Don't mind Carl, he was only joking.
And of course, Griffin Dunn played Jack. And then, because you had Brian Glover played the man in the pub. That's enough.
That's enough.
Yeah. Rick Mail is in the film.
Yes.
And that was just by chance because John Landis went to see, and one of his friends went to see Rick, the Young Ones.
Yeah.
And he was
your man driving the taxi as well. What's his name?
That's right, Bricktop. Alan Carr, is it Alan Carr?
Yeah. I can't remember his name.
Bricktop, anyway.
Yeah.
And there's so many actors that we know in it.
I thought John Landis done a great job in kind of staying true to the culture of England in it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was good. You know what I mean? It was just two American guys in it in England. They made it very, very. He made it very, very true to where it was supposed to be done.
Very British. Very British.
Yes, which is a good thing because look, let's be honest. In terms of the history of film and especially within thriller, horror, and psychological movies, the Brits are in a league of their own.
Absolutely.
In terms of they started.
They have a legacy all their own.
Absolutely, it was all Hitchcock and Hammer and stuff like that. They paved the way. So, and I think any true American horror fans would agree with that. We had Phil Anselmo, you've heard him talking on the Dynamo's Dozen in the past about that as well, saying that all the British stuff was his favourite back in the day. You can't get much bigger horror fan than that. So Very, very true. And I just thought John Landis done a great job at that. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't tempted to kind of spend too much other scene, time on other scenes in the States or anything like that. It was all there. It was all British actors, made it very real, and you could really sympathize with the two boys basically coming over for, spring break or summer holidays, whatever the hell they were over there for. Well, we know what they were over there for. They were over to Roger one.
Only one of them got to do it though, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So, no, phenomenal movie. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, it was followed up by an American Werewolf in Paris, but that's all we're going to say about that, because that was an awful film. You ever see that?
I plead the fifth. Yeah.
What a shit film. But funny enough, that's what American Werewolf in London was originally going to be called, was American Werewolf in Paris.
Paris.
Yeah, Paris. But I'm glad they went with London, because it's
me too.
Just grittier, more realistic,
Yes, definitely.
So, as we were saying, we're going to throw out some slabs of meat for our show. And go on, you go first. Go on.
So if I was to pick up out of 5 slabs of meat on my floor here, and I was to throw it on that cold steel, I would give it 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I would give it 4. People might say, why not 5 if you love it so much? I mean, look, you can't make the perfect movie. Sometimes there is some that come to mind that is the perfect movie that might get 5. But I think for the time and for the story that they were telling, and for the fact that it was kind of the first kind of werewolf movie of its kind that stepped out of the old cliche werewolf genre, I think it done its job. So it doesn't get the perfect 5 for me, but not for reasons anything other than it was what it was.
Yeah.
And I think 4 is a more than fair score.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think that's the same with me. I, as much as I love the film, and everyone in my life knows how much I love the film, I'm still only going to give it 4 out of 5. But for the same reasons that you've said, Ian. And like the one thing that did annoy me in the film that I neglected to talk about earlier on was, do you remember in the transformation scene?
Yes.
There's one part where he falls on his back and he's looking at the camera, he's like, whoa, and it just looks so ridiculous. He's looking at the camera, he's like, oh, I was just like, we could have done without that,
like the acting isn't amazing in it. That's what I'm saying. And like, not that we're looking at horror movies, for amazing.
No.
Well, we are looking at it for amazing acting, but we're looking to a point. So I think that's only little minor details that make it 4. I think for both of us rather than 5.
Yeah, and I think I can safely say that us here on the slab would happily say, go out and look at that film. Watch that film. Watch everything you can about it. Please do. I think so.
You gotta, guys. Like, I watched it again the other day. Obviously, just to freshen it in my mind, and it was kind of like when I was watching, I was like, I didn't even need to do this because I remember it, But it's actually one of those things now where I'm like, I gotta watch this once a year, at least. You know what I mean?
That's what I do. Well, I watch it more, but it's a yearly thing now. Yeah.
You got to do it, you know what I mean? Everybody, especially around Halloween time, you got to watch this. But for anyone that can't remember it or hasn't seen it, guys, go and watch it, and girls, go and watch it, because I think I think, as I say, it's the first werewolf movie of its kind, and it's the last werewolf movie of its kind.
Absolutely,
if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and I think that's the best way to end this first episode of On the Slab. I couldn't have put it better myself. The first werewolf movie of its kind and the last werewolf movie of its kind. Absolutely brilliant. Ian, I've had a bit of crack talking about this of you.
I've had a great time. Had an absolutely I don't think your debut show could have got any better. People obviously like more. they know where they can follow us.
Yeah.
They're looking at us right now on the Dynamo Podcast Network on YouTube. So smash the like button,
Like, share.
subscribe.
I think we're going to just keep it on YouTube for now, but we'll see how things go. It's up to, of course, it's up to you, boss man. Really.
Well, if there's a warrant that people want to hear the audio of it, that's absolutely fine. We can make that happen. But I think the visual, the reactionary kind of moments of time when we're talking about these things
and memories for us. Yeah, I think I agree with you. But so I think we better let these people go to their graves. What do you think?
I think so. Yeah, I think they should go and order a pint at the Slaughtered Lamb. And,
absolutely, and don't forget, beware the moon. That's on the slab. Over and out.